Alicia Washington woke up at 5:30 a.m., a full hour before her alarm. Today was important. After months of emails, phone calls, and video meetings, she would finally meet the people at Pinnacle Solutions face to face. The deal could change everything for her company. She got out of bed and went straight to her hotel room window. The city skyline looked beautiful in the early morning light. Alicia had flown in last night to make sure she would be fresh and ready for today's meeting. At 34, Alicia was one of the youngest black female executives in the tech industry. As the Chief Operations Officer at Horizon Innovations, she had helped grow the small tech firm into a rising star. The potential partnership with Pinnacle Solutions could take them to the next level. Alicia picked out her navy blue suit, the one she saved for the most important meetings. She paired it with a simple white blouse and pearl earrings her grandmother had given her when she graduated college. These earrings were her lucky charm. She had worn them to every important meeting in her career. After a quick breakfast in her hotel room, Alicia reviewed her notes one last time. The partnership would allow both companies to reach new markets. Horizon had the innovative software, and Pinnacle had the customer base. It made perfect sense. Alicia arrived at the Pinnacle Solutions building at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes before her scheduled meeting with CEO Greg Patterson. The building was impressive, 60 floors of glass and steel in the heart of downtown. Pinnacle Solutions occupied the top 15 floors, showing just how successful they had become in the last decade. She took a deep breath before entering through the revolving doors. The lobby was spacious with marble floors and modern art on the walls. A large reception desk sat in the center where a blonde woman in her 40s typed away at a computer. Alicia approached with a confident smile. "Good morning. I'm Alicia Washington from Horizon Innovations. I have a 9 a.m. meeting with Greg Patterson." The receptionist, whose nameplate read Diane Miller, barely looked up from her screen. When she finally did, her eyes moved from Alicia's face to her suit and back again. Something in her expression changed. "I'm sorry, what did you say your name was?" Diane asked, her tone noticeably cooler. "Alicia Washington. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Horizon Innovations," Alicia replied, maintaining her professional smile. "Mr. Patterson and I have been discussing a potential partnership between our companies." Diane's eyebrows rose slightly. She looked at her computer screen and frowned. "I don't see any appointment with an Alicia Washington on Mr. Patterson's calendar today." Alicia reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "I have the email confirmation right here. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. today." She showed Diane the email from Greg's assistant confirming the date and time. Diane glanced at the phone without really reading it. "There must be some mistake," she said, looking Alicia up and down again. "Mr. Patterson doesn't have any meetings with cleaning staff today." The words hit Alicia like a slap. She had faced subtle discrimination throughout her career, but this was blatant. 3 other employees standing nearby turned to look at the exchange, but no one said anything. "I'm not cleaning staff," Alicia said firmly, keeping her voice even. "As I mentioned, I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Horizon Innovations. We're a technology company specializing in supply chain management software. Mr. Patterson and I have been in discussions for months about a potential partnership." Diane laughed dismissively. "Look, I know everyone who comes through these doors. Mr. Patterson is extremely busy with important meetings today. I think you're confused about where you're supposed to be." Alicia took another deep breath. "I'm not confused. Could you please call Mr. Patterson's office and let them know I've arrived?" "Listen, I don't have time for this," Diane said, her voice getting louder. "Mr. Patterson is extremely busy with important people today. Get lost before I call security." Though 3 employees who had been watching now pretended to be busy with their phones. No one stepped in to help. Alicia reached into her suit jacket and pulled out her business card. "Perhaps this will clear things up," she said, placing it on the counter. Diane didn't even look at it. Instead, she picked up her phone. "Security, please. We have a situation in the main lobby." Alicia felt her heart racing, but years of being The only black woman in countless boardrooms had taught her to stay calm in difficult situations. She stood her ground. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Alicia said. "I have an appointment, and I'd appreciate it if you would verify that with Mr. Patterson's office before calling security. The only misunderstanding is you thinking you can walk in here and claim to be an executive," Diane replied coldly. "Security will escort you out shortly." Just then, the elevator doors opened. A group of men in expensive suits walked out, led by a tall man with salt and pepper hair. Alicia immediately recognized Greg Patterson from their video calls. Greg was mid-conversation with the men around him when he spotted Alicia. His face lit up with recognition. "Alicia, I'm so glad you made it," Greg said, extending his hand as he walked over. "I see you've met Diane." Diane's face drained of color as Greg shook Alicia's hand warmly. "Gentlemen, this is Alicia Washington, the brilliant COO who's revolutionizing supply chain management at Horizon Innovations," Greg said to the men with him. "Alicia, these are some of our board members who wanted to sit in on our meeting today." The board members each shook Alicia's hand, showing her the respect her position deserved. Diane watched in shock, her mouth slightly open. "Has Diane offered you coffee or anything?" Greg asked. "We were just getting acquainted," Alicia said diplomatically, though her heart was still pounding. Greg turned to Diane. "Diane, please cancel that security call and let the catering team know we're ready for the breakfast setup in the main conference room." "Yes, Mr. Patterson," Diane mumbled, not meeting anyone's eyes. As they walked toward the elevator, Greg lowered his voice. "I apologize if there was any confusion. We're very excited about this potential partnership." Alicia nodded, maintaining her professional composure. "I'm looking forward to our discussion." As they stepped into the elevator, Alicia could feel Diane's eyes on her back. She stood tall, keeping her shoulders straight and her head high. The elevator doors closed and Alicia took a deep breath. The day had barely started, and already she faced a reminder of the challenges she dealt with regularly. Greg pressed the button for the top floor. "We've prepared a presentation I think you'll find interesting. Our team has been working on integration possibilities for weeks." Alicia pushed the lobby incident to the back of her mind and focused on the business at hand. She had important work to do. But as the elevator climbed higher, she couldn't help wondering if what happened in the lobby was just one person's behavior or a sign of deeper problems at Pinnacle Solutions. The elevator rose smoothly to the top floor of the Pinnacle Solutions building. Alicia stood next to Greg Patterson and 3 board members, all men in expensive suits. No one mentioned what had happened in the lobby, but Alicia could feel the slight tension in the air. When the doors opened, they stepped into a hallway with floor-to-ceiling windows that showed a stunning view of the city. Alicia took a moment to appreciate it, then followed Greg into a large conference room. A long table made of dark wood filled the center of the room. Breakfast had been set up on a side table: pastries, fruit, coffee, and juice. "Please help yourself," Greg said, gesturing to the food. "Our team will join us in a few minutes." Alicia took a cup of coffee but skipped the food. Her stomach was still tight from the encounter with Diane. As she sat down, she noticed she was the only woman in the room. She was also the only black person. This wasn't unusual in her experience, but after what had just happened, it felt more noticeable. Greg introduced the board members properly. There was Frank Porter, the chief financial officer, Bill Summers, head of marketing, and John Davis, one of the original investors. They all smiled and nodded at Alicia, but their eyes held something she recognized: surprise mixed with curiosity. She had seen that look many times before. "Alicia has built quite an impressive operation at Horizon," Greg told them. "Their supply chain software could be exactly what we need to stay ahead of our competition." Alicia smiled and opened her laptop. "I've prepared some slides that show how our systems could work with yours." Just then, the door opened and 5 more people walked in, 4 men and 1 woman. Greg introduced them as part of the technical team that would work on the integration if the partnership moved forward. The woman, Linda Brown, was the only person of color among them. As the meeting began, Alicia gave her presentation. She explained, how Horizon software could help Pinnacle track products more efficiently, save money, and deliver faster to customers. The team asked good questions, and Alicia answered them confidently. This was her area of expertise, and she knew her product, inside and out. After her presentation, Greg suggested a tour of the building. "We want you to get a feel for how we operate," he said. They started on the executive floor where the offices were large and had the best views. Alicia noticed that all the executives they met were white men. The few women she saw worked as assistants. As they walked through the different departments, Alicia began to see a pattern. The higher the floor, the fewer people of color. On the lower floors, where the customer service and support teams worked, there was more diversity. But even there, all the team leaders were white. During the tour, Alicia overheard some conversations. That made her uncomfortable. In one department, a manager was telling a joke that relied on racial stereotypes. He stopped when he saw Alicia, looking embarrassed. In another area, she heard two employees talking about a recent promotion. "You know why David got it instead of Maria," one said. "They're never going to put someone like her in charge of anything important." They fell silent when the tour group approached. Greg seemed oblivious to these undercurrents. He talked proudly about the company culture and how they valued all their employees. Alicia began to wonder if he simply didn't see the problems or if he chose to ignore them. At noon, they returned to the conference room for lunch. Sandwiches and salads had been laid out, and the conversation turned to more general topics. Board members asked Alicia about her background, where she went to school, how she got into the tech industry, how she became a COO so young. "It must have been quite a journey for someone like you," Frank Porter said. His tone was friendly, but something about the way he said "someone like you" made Alicia pause. "I've been fortunate to have good mentors," she replied carefully. "And I work hard." Bill Summers laughed. "Well, you people are known for that, aren't you? Hard work is in your DNA." The room got quiet. Greg looked uncomfortable but said nothing. John Davis quickly changed the subject, asking about the timeline for implementing the software if they moved forward with the partnership. Alicia answered professionally, but inside she was making notes. These comments, combined with what she had seen during the tour and the incident with Diane in the lobby, were painting a clear picture of Pinnacle's company culture. After lunch, there was a technical meeting where Alicia's team joined by video call. They discussed the details of how the software would integrate with Pinnacle's existing systems. The conversation was productive, focusing on practical matters rather than personalities. During a short break, Alicia excused herself to use the restroom. Linda Brown, the woman from the technical team, offered to show her the way. As they walked down the hall, Linda spoke quietly. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry about what happened in the meeting. Bill shouldn't have said that." Alicia appreciated the gesture. "Thank you. Has that kind of thing happened before?" Linda looked around to make sure no one could hear them. "More than I can count. I've been here 5 years and sometimes I wonder why I stay. But jobs like this aren't easy to find, and I have bills to pay." "Are there other people of color in leadership roles here?" Alicia asked. Linda shook her head. "Not in the 7 years since the company started. There was a black man who was up for a director position last year. He was the most qualified by far, but they gave it to someone else. He left soon after." They reached the restroom and Linda hesitated. "I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but when I saw how Diane treated you this morning—" "Yes, word got around quickly. I thought you should know what kind of company you might be partnering with." Alicia thanked her for being honest. When she returned to the conference room, she looked at the potential partnership with new eyes. The deal made sense from a business perspective. Horizon software combined with Pinnacle's market reach could be very profitable for both companies. But at what cost? The afternoon continued with more meetings. Greg was clearly eager to move forward. By the end of the day, he suggested that they have dinner to discuss final details. "There's a great restaurant not far from here," he said. "Why don't we continue our conversation there? Just you, me, and the board members." Alicia agreed, though her mind was already working on a different plan. During dinner, she would observe more closely. She would ask careful questions about company culture and diversity initiatives. She would see if her concerns were valid or if she was missing something. As they left the building together, they passed through the lobby again. Diane was still at the reception desk. When she saw Alicia walking with Greg and the board members, she quickly looked down at her computer. Greg didn't seem to notice, but Frank Porter did. He glanced at Diane, then at Alicia. "I heard there was some confusion this morning," he said quietly. "I hope it didn't cause you any trouble." "Nothing I haven't handled before," Alicia replied, her voice neutral but her meaning clear. Frank nodded slowly. "I see. Well, we're glad you're here now." As they stepped outside into the evening air, Alicia took a deep breath. The day had been revealing in ways she hadn't expected. Now she needed to decide what to do with what she had learned. The business opportunity was excellent, but some things were more important than profit. The dinner ahead would help her make her final decision about Pinnacle Solutions. The restaurant Greg chose was expensive and elegant. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and soft music played in the background. A host in a black suit led them to a private room in the back. Greg, Alicia, and the 3 board members settled around a round table covered with a white tablecloth. Alicia noticed she was still the only woman and the only black person in the group. After the waiter took their drink orders, Greg raised his water glass. "To new partnerships," he said. Everyone raised their glasses. Alicia smiled but didn't say anything. She was watching and listening carefully now. She wanted to understand exactly what kind of company Pinnacle Solutions was before making any decisions. The conversation flowed easily at first. They talked about the tech industry, recent innovations, and companies they admired. Alicia spoke about how Horizon started and the challenges they had overcome. The men seemed impressed by her knowledge and experience. When their food arrived, Frank Porter asked about Horizon's hiring practices. "Do you have any special diversity programs?" The way he said diversity made it sound like a bad word. "We hire the best people for each job," Alicia said. "We also make sure everyone knows about open positions and has a fair chance to apply. Our team is diverse because we remove barriers that might keep qualified people from joining us." Bill Summers chuckled. "We tried something like that once. Ended up with a bunch of people who weren't qualified but checked the right boxes." Alicia kept her face neutral, though anger flared inside her. "That hasn't been our experience. In fact, our performance improved after we broadened our hiring pool." John Davis jumped in. "The problem is finding qualified candidates. There just aren't many minorities with the right skills in our industry." "I respectfully disagree," Alicia said. "There are many qualified candidates from all backgrounds. The challenge is creating a workplace where they want to stay and can succeed." Greg looked uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. He changed the subject to the technical aspects of the partnership. Alicia let him, but she had heard enough. Her concerns about Pinnacle's culture were being confirmed with every comment. After dinner, Greg suggested they move to the bar for drinks. As they walked through the restaurant, his phone rang. He excused himself to take the call. With Greg gone, the board members seemed to relax. They ordered expensive whiskey and began talking more freely. Alicia sipped her water and listened. "Between us," Frank said quietly, "how much is this partnership really worth to Horizon? We might have some room to negotiate a better deal for Pinnacle." "Our offer is fair," Alicia said. "We've done the math carefully." Bill leaned in. "But you need this deal more than we do. Your company is what, 5 years old? Pinnacle has been established for much longer. We each bring valuable assets to this partnership," Alicia said. "Horizon's software is the best in the industry. Several of your competitors have already expressed interest." John Davis raised his eyebrows. "Is that so? Greg didn't mention other companies were in the mix." "We're speaking with Pinnacle first because we think there's a good fit," Alicia said. "But we have options." The men exchanged glances. Their attitude shifted slightly. Alicia realized they had assumed Horizon was desperate for this deal. They had underestimated her and her company. Greg returned from his call, and they talked for another hour. By the time they left the restaurant, it was after 10 o'clock. Greg offered to have his driver take Alicia back to her hotel. "That's very kind, but I already arranged a car," Alicia said. In truth, she wanted time alone to think. Back in her hotel room, Alicia kicked off her shoes and sat on the edge of the bed. The day had been long and revealing. She pulled out her phone and made some notes about everything she had seen and heard. Diane's behavior in the lobby. No people of color in executive positions, few women in leadership roles. Overheard racist joke during tour comments about you people at lunch. Linda's warning about the company culture. The board's attitude at dinner. She also noted the positive aspects of the potential partnership. Good technical fit between companies. Strong market. Position for Pinnacle financial benefits for Horizon. Greg seemed open to new ideas. Though blind to problems, Alicia sighed. The business case for the partnership was clear, but her gut was telling her something else. She decided to do more research before making a final decision. She opened her laptop and searched for information about Pinnacle Solutions. The company website showed smiling faces from various backgrounds claiming that diversity was a core value. But Alicia knew the reality was different. She dug deeper, searching for reviews from former employees. On a job review website, she found several concerning posts. Great place to work if you're a white male. Otherwise, prepare to hit the glass ceiling. Left after 3 years because I watched less qualified people get promoted over me repeatedly. Toxic culture that pretends to care about diversity but doesn't follow through. There were good reviews, too. Mostly from people in technical positions who didn't mention the company culture. But the pattern was clear enough. Alicia searched for news articles about Pinnacle. Most were about business deals or new products. But one article from 2 years ago caught her eye. A former employee had filed a discrimination lawsuit against the company. The case had been settled out of court, with no admission of wrongdoing. From Pinnacle, Alicia found 3 more similar cases, all settled quietly. This suggested a pattern of problems that the company preferred to pay to make disappear rather than address. She also looked up the company's leadership team and board of directors. Out of 15 people, 14 were white men. The only exception was a white woman who had joined the board recently. By midnight, Alicia had a much clearer picture of Pinnacle Solutions. On paper, they claimed to value diversity and inclusion. In reality, they maintained a culture that excluded people who didn't fit a narrow mold. Alicia closed her laptop and walked to the window. The city lights twinkled below. She had an important decision to make. The partnership made business sense. It would help Horizon grow faster and reach more customers. It would bring in significant revenue. The board back home would be thrilled. But Alicia had built Horizon with different values. They believed in creating opportunities for everyone with talent and drive, regardless of their background. They had fought hard to build a company where people felt valued and respected. Partnering with Pinnacle would mean compromising those values. It would mean working closely with people who saw Alicia herself as less worthy because of her race and gender. It would mean tacitly approving of their discriminatory practices. Could she really put her name on such a deal? Could she face her team back home and explain why she had chosen to partner with a company like Pinnacle? Alicia thought about Linda Brown, stuck in a place where she felt undervalued, but afraid to leave. She thought about the receptionist Diane, who felt comfortable telling a black woman to get lost even though that woman was a potential business partner. She thought about all the qualified people who would never get a fair chance at Pinnacle because of what they looked like or where they came from. Then she made her decision. Tomorrow, she would go back to Pinnacle Solutions for the final negotiation meeting. But instead of signing the partnership agreement, she would do something else entirely. Alicia went to bed with a clear mind. She knew what she had to do, and she was ready to do it. Alicia woke up early the next morning feeling rested and confident. She had made her decision, and now she needed to prepare for the meeting. She ordered breakfast to her room and called her team back at Horizon. "Good morning, everyone," she said when her 5 senior managers appeared on the video call. "I need to update you on the Pinnacle situation." Alicia explained what she had experienced and what she had learned about the company. Her team listened with serious faces. "So I've decided not to sign the partnership agreement today," she finished. "I believe it would be a mistake to connect our company with theirs." There was a moment of silence, then Sam, her chief technology officer, spoke up. That's a big decision, Alicia. The deal would have brought in a lot of money. I know, Alicia said. But some things are more important than money. I don't think we can work with a company that treats people the way Pinnacle does. Maria, the head of marketing, nodded. I agree. Our brand stands for inclusion and respect. This partnership would damage that. The others expressed similar views. They had built Horizon together, creating a company that valued people for their skills and ideas, not their appearance. Working with Pinnacle would undermine everything they stood for. What will you tell them? Asked Jerome, the finance director. The truth, Alicia said simply. They need to know why we're walking away. After the call, Alicia dressed carefully in a red suit that made her feel powerful. She wanted to look her best for what would be a difficult conversation. She put on her grandmother's pearl earrings again, touching them briefly for luck. When she arrived at the Pinnacle building, Diane was once again at the reception desk. This time, seeing Alicia, she immediately picked up the phone. Ms. Washington is here for her 9 a.m. meeting with Mr. Patterson, she said stiffly. Alicia waited by the desk. She noticed Diane wouldn't meet her eyes. Word had clearly spread about who Alicia was and the important partnership she represented. Greg came down to meet her himself. Alicia, good morning. Everyone's waiting upstairs. I think we can wrap this up quickly and celebrate a new partnership. They rode the elevator together, making small talk. Greg seemed excited and confident. He had no idea what was coming. The conference room, the board members, and several lawyers were waiting. Papers were spread out on the table, the final contract for the partnership. Greg's assistant had set up champagne for a celebration after the signing. Good morning, everyone, Alicia said as she took her seat. She placed her laptop and a folder on the table but didn't open either one. Let's get right to it, Greg said, eagerly. The legal teams have reviewed everything and we're ready to make this official. He slid the contract toward Alicia. Alicia looked at the document but didn't pick up her pen. Before we proceed, I'd like to share some thoughts about this potential partnership. Greg smiled. Of course. The floor is yours. Alicia took a deep breath. After careful consideration, I've decided that Horizon Innovations cannot enter into a partnership with Pinnacle Solutions at this time. The room fell silent. Greg's smile faded. I'm sorry, what? Is there a problem with the terms? The problem isn't with the contract, Alicia said. It's with the company culture at Pinnacle. Frank Porter frowned. What do you mean by that? Alicia met his eyes directly. During my time here, I've observed a pattern of behavior that concerns me deeply. It started when your receptionist told me to get lost because she assumed a black woman couldn't possibly be an executive. Greg looked embarrassed. Diane was out of line, and I apologize for that. But it was one employee making a mistake. It doesn't represent our company. I wish that were true, Alicia said. But as I toured your building, I noticed that you have no people of color in leadership positions. I overheard racist jokes and comments. At lunch yesterday, one of your board members made a comment about you people that was clearly racist. Bill Summers shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. Furthermore, Alicia continued, I've learned that Pinnacle has settled several discrimination lawsuits in recent years. This suggests a pattern, not isolated incidents. John Davis leaned forward. Those cases were resolved with no admission of wrongdoing. That's standard procedure. Perhaps, Alicia said, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire, and I've seen enough smoke here to be concerned. Greg looked genuinely confused. I had no idea you felt this way. Why didn't you say something sooner? I needed to be sure, Alicia explained. I did my research and confirmed what I had observed. Pinnacle Solutions presents itself as a company that values diversity, but the reality is very different. That's unfair, Frank protested. We have many employees from different backgrounds. Mostly in lower-level positions, Alicia pointed out, but very few in management or leadership roles. And from what I've seen and heard, those few face significant barriers to advancement. The room was tense now. The lawyers exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the turn the meeting had taken. Greg tried to salvage the situation. Alicia, I understand your concerns, but this partnership could benefit both our companies enormously. Perhaps we could include some diversity initiatives as part of our agreement? Alicia shook her head. This isn't about adding a few programs or making token hires. It's about fundamental values. At Horizon, we believe that everyone deserves respect and equal opportunity. We've built our company on those principles. I cannot in good conscience connect us to a company that doesn't share those values. You're making a big mistake, Bill Summers said, his face red with anger. You won't find a better deal than this. Perhaps not, Alicia agreed. But some things are more important than money. I believe we'll find partners who align better with our values. She stood up and gathered her things. Thank you for your time and hospitality. I wish you all the best. As she turned to leave, Linda Brown from the technical team appeared in the doorway. She had clearly overheard the conversation. She gave Alicia a small nod of appreciation. Greg followed Alicia into the hallway. Please reconsider, he said. We can work on these issues. Give us a chance to show you we can change. Alicia paused. Change has to come from within, Greg. It has to be genuine, not just a response to losing a deal. Take a hard look at your company. Ask yourself why qualified people like Linda never advance beyond certain levels. Ask yourself why your board and executive team all look the same. If you really want change, start there. She left Greg standing in the hallway with a stunned expression. As Alicia rode the elevator down to the lobby, she felt lighter somehow. She had given up a profitable deal, but she had stayed true to her principles. In the lobby, Diane watched nervously as Alicia walked toward the exit. To Diane's surprise, Alicia stopped at the reception desk. I hope you have a good day, Diane, Alicia said calmly. Diane flushed with shame. I'm sorry about yesterday, she said quietly. I shouldn't have assumed. No, you shouldn't have, Alicia agreed. People are more than what they look like. Remember that next time. With that, she walked out of the building into the bright morning sunshine. Outside, Alicia called a car to take her to the airport. While she waited, she called her team again to let them know what had happened. They fully supported her decision. We'll find another way to expand, Sam assured her. One that doesn't compromise who we are. Alicia smiled as she ended the call. She had done the right thing, even though it wasn't the easy thing. As her car arrived, she took one last look at the Pinnacle building gleaming in the sun. She wondered if her words would make any difference. Perhaps not. But at least she had spoken the truth. The car pulled away from the curb, and Alicia turned, her thoughts to the future. There would be other opportunities for Horizon, ones that didn't require them to compromise their values. She was already thinking about what to do next. 1 month had passed since Alicia walked away from the Pinnacle Solutions deal. She sat in her office at Horizon Innovations, reviewing quarterly reports. The company was doing well, growing steadily without the Pinnacle partnership. Alicia had no regrets about her decision. Her assistant knocked on the door. Alicia, you have a visitor. Linda Brown from Pinnacle Solutions. Alicia looked up in surprise. She hadn't expected to hear from anyone at Pinnacle again. Please send her in. Linda entered the office looking different than Alicia remembered. She seemed more confident, standing taller. She wore a stylish blue suit and carried a leather portfolio. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment, Linda said as they shook hands. Of course. Please have a seat, Alicia said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. How are things at Pinnacle? Linda smiled. Very different since you left. Your words started something big. Alicia raised her eyebrows. Really? Tell me more. After you walked away from the partnership, word spread quickly about why, Linda explained. Greg was upset at first, mainly about losing the deal, but he couldn't ignore what you said, especially when 3 other companies also declined to work with Pinnacle in the following weeks. 3 others? Alicia was surprised. Linda nodded. Yes, apparently your decision made people talk. Other companies started asking questions about our diversity practices during negotiations. When they didn't like the answers, they walked away too. I had no idea, Alicia said. That was just the beginning. Linda continued. The board called an emergency meeting. They were concerned about the company's reputation and losing more deals. They hired a consultant to evaluate Pinnacle's culture and practices. And what did they find? Alicia asked, though she could guess the answer. Exactly what you saw, Linda said. Systemic problems at every level. Discrimination in hiring and promotions. A toxic environment for women and people of color. The consultant's report was scathing. Alicia wasn't surprised. How did the board respond? Better than I expected, Linda said. They realized these problems were hurting the business. Several major clients were threatening to leave. The stock price was dropping. They had to act. What changes have they made? Alicia asked. Linda opened her portfolio and took out some papers. First, they fired Diane and 2 senior managers who had the most complaints against them. Then they created a new position, Chief Diversity Officer, and gave it real power and resources. Who got that job? Alicia asked. Linda smiled. I did. That's partly why I'm here today. Congratulations, Alicia said, genuinely pleased. That's a big step for Pinnacle. It is, Linda agreed. But there's more. The board voted to remove Bill Summers after his comments about you people became public. They've added 2 new board members, a black woman and an Asian man, both with strong backgrounds in tech. Alicia was impressed. These were substantial changes, not just window dressing. They've also established new hiring practices and promotion policies, Linda continued. And they've set specific goals for increasing diversity at all levels of the company. What about Greg? Alicia asked. Is he supporting these changes? Linda hesitated. He was resistant at first. He kept saying Pinnacle didn't have a problem, just a few bad employees. But after the consultant's report, and especially after losing more potential partners, he started to see the reality. Now he's taking unconscious bias training along with all the other executives. Alicia nodded. That matched her impression of Greg. Not malicious, but blind to problems until they affected the bottom line. There's something else you should know, Linda said, looking slightly uncomfortable. Someone recorded your final meeting with the board when you explained why you were walking away from the deal. Recorded it? Alicia was surprised. Why? Standard practice for contract negotiations, Linda explained. But what wasn't standard was what happened next. Someone leaked the recording to a tech blog. Your words went viral in the industry. Alicia hadn't heard about this. When did this happen? About 2 weeks after you left, Linda said. The recording was edited to remove confidential business details, but it included everything you said about Pinnacle's culture. You became a bit of a hero to many people in the industry who've faced similar situations but felt powerless to speak up. Alicia didn't know how to feel about this unexpected publicity. She had simply done what she thought was right. That's why I'm really here, Linda said, pulling out another document from her portfolio. Pinnacle has a new CEO. What happened to Greg? Alicia asked. He resigned last week, Linda said. The board decided the company needed new leadership. To truly change its culture, they brought in Olivia Martinez from West Coast Tech. She started 3 days ago. Alicia knew Olivia by reputation, a respected leader with a strong track record of building inclusive organizations. Olivia asked me to give you this, Linda said, handing Alicia the document. It was a letter, personally signed by Olivia Martinez. Alicia read it quickly. The letter acknowledged the past problems at Pinnacle and outlined the steps the company was taking to address them. It ended with an invitation for Alicia to visit Pinnacle again to see the changes firsthand and to discuss reopening partnership talks. She's serious about this, Linda said. The company is changing, Alicia. It's not perfect yet, but it's moving in the right direction. And it started because of you, because you had the courage to walk away and tell them why. Alicia placed the letter on her desk. I'll need to think about this and discuss it with my team. Of course, Linda said. There's no rush. Olivia just wanted you to know that your words made a difference. Whether we end up working together or not, Pinnacle is becoming a better company because of what you did. They talked for a few more minutes about the specific changes at Pinnacle. Linda shared stories of employees who finally felt valued and heard. Some who had been ready to leave were now staying to be part of the transformation. After Linda left, Alicia sat quietly in her office. She hadn't expected her decision to have such far-reaching effects. She had simply stood by her principles, refusing to compromise her values for a business deal. But that one choice had apparently sparked significant change. She called a meeting with her senior team to discuss Olivia's letter. They gathered in the conference room, curious about this unexpected development. "Should we reconsider a partnership with Pinnacle?" Alicia asked, after explaining the situation. The team had mixed reactions. Some were skeptical, wondering if the changes were real or just for show. Others saw an opportunity to partner with a company that was actively working to improve. "What do you think, Alicia?" Maria asked. "You saw the problems firsthand." Alicia thought carefully before answering. "I believe people can change, and companies can change if the people leading them are committed to doing better." From what Linda said, it sounds like Pinnacle is making real efforts, not just superficial fixes. "So you want to move forward?" Sam asked. "I think we should at least look," Alicia said. "I'll visit them again, see the changes for myself. If I'm convinced they're genuine, we can discuss reopening negotiations." The team agreed with this approach. Alicia would go back to Pinnacle and evaluate the situation firsthand. 2 days later, Alicia returned to the Pinnacle Solutions building. This time, a young man named Keith greeted her at the reception desk with professional courtesy. Olivia Martinez came down to meet her personally. As they toured the building, Alicia saw noticeable differences. The atmosphere felt more open. People from diverse backgrounds were more visible at all levels. In meetings, everyone's ideas were heard and considered. Alicia didn't sign a partnership agreement that day. She wanted to see if these changes would last. But 6 months later, after continued positive reports and further improvements at Pinnacle, Horizon and Pinnacle finally became partners. The day they signed the agreement, Alicia thought back to that first visit when Diane had told her to get lost. That moment of discrimination could have been just another painful experience to endure. Instead, it had become a catalyst for meaningful change. Alicia hadn't set out to transform Pinnacle Solutions. She had simply refused to accept disrespect and discrimination as the price of doing business. But her courage in that moment had rippled outward, affecting not just one company, but setting an example for the entire industry. Sometimes, Alicia realized, the most powerful thing you can do is simply stand your ground and speak the truth.